games. It's ScrubGames. Drop a like, drop a sub, go ahead and subscribe to ScrubGames. Drop a like, drop a sub, go ahead and subscribe to ScrubGames.
How's it going, Scrub Gamers? Welcome back to another video here at ScrubGames, and today we have the next installment of my Understand How to Build series, where I go over all the leaders in a given set to help you understand how to build them to suit you and your playstyle. Now, we've covered all the other command leaders, and we're going to the last one for this week being Wedge Antilles. So if you're interested in learning how to build him, then stay tuned. And also, don't forget, you can like, comment, and subscribe to keep updated with the videos that come out on my channel. And also help out the channel because we're on our way to 2,000 subs. And also don't forget that there's that notification bell you can click, so that way you can get alerts for when my videos do drop, so you can watch it when you want, at a later time that suits you if you can't watch them straight away. So, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and help you understand how to build Wedge Antilles. So, we're going to start with the leader first, because Star Wars Unlimited is a leader-based game, so you can't really play without one, and they're usually what you're going to build your deck around, because they're either going to be generic, so very easy to use with almost anything, or they're going to focus on a specific kind of like trait or mechanic. And the thing with Wedge is he is focused on the pilots in the new pilot mechanic, because that is something that came out brand new in the set, and he even sports a new kind of deploy where you can deploy him either as a leader in the ground arena, or you can deploy him as an upgrade on a vehicle, so basically piloting a vehicle to give him a boost. Now, if you do either, you then come down either on 5 more resources, so that is when he can use that effect, is on 5 more resources, being turn 4 or onwards. And essentially, he comes down, if you choose to drop him down in the ground arena, he comes down as a 3/6, respectable stats, 6 health means he's out the way of takedown, and 3 damage is pretty good. But if you choose to then pilot him on a vehicle, which could be either in a ground arena or space arena, depending on where the vehicle is, but you can pop him on, and what he does is he provides you with an extra 3 power to that unit and 4 health, so extra 3/4 to that unit, meaning they're a little bit stronger. And the nice thing about it is also, while when he is deployed in the ground arena, he comes out as a leader unit, whatever he attaches to becomes now a leader unit. So when those effects say non-leader unit, they can't touch it while he's equipped to him. And with his effect, he's all about the piloting. Like I said, he's basically making use of the pilot mechanic, making it a little bit easier to use. And it's all about playing those pilots on units for a little bit less than normal cost. Because when he's in the leader area, he's got an action whereby tapping him, you can play a card from your hand using piloting, so a new mechanic that's similar to Smuggle, but play it from your hand, not from your resources, and it costs 1 less. So if it would cost 1, it now costs 0. If it costs 2, it costs 1. Vice versa, etc, etc. And so he's basically making use of those piloting skills, but making you able to play him for a little bit cheaper. So like normally if you would tap out to play a vehicle, but now you can pilot a unit, you can potentially pilot by using his effect to make it a little bit cheaper. And when he is deployed on a vehicle, like when he's deployed in the ground arena anyway, he's got no effect. But when he's attached to a vehicle as a leader unit, like equipped to him as a pilot, he now has the same effect, but now it's on attack. So when he attacks, the next pilot you can play this phase costs 1 less. So he's still making it cheaper to play as pilots. And on the turn he deploys, you can potentially play 2 pilots for free, because when you do it for the leader area, you play the card using piloting, costs 1 less. But then, so you can do 2 pilots, both cost 1 less to make it a little bit easier. Also, he's got a pretty useful trait being Rebel, which is a trait we got all the way from set 1 that got a lot of good support, and even in this set as well has a lot of support for that trait. So you've got a lot of Rebel cards you can use to support him, and then the the pilot trait is basically just used there for pilots, just notify they are a pilot. So as a leader, nice and simple, all about the pilot skill, the new pilot skill, making use of it, and also showcasing that new kind of deploy. And also, like we've had since set 2, every leader in the set gets a showcase, and this is Wedge's one. So I think Wedge's one is pretty nice, pretty cool, like just showcasing the cockpit, like as a fighter, because he's a pretty good one. I think he's been survived throughout the entire films, I think, and is a pretty good pilot if he can do all that. And do remember that showcases are essentially alternative art, so they're more shiny arts you can use to make your deck a little bit more sparkly and shiny. But then, since they are alternative arts and art is subjective, it only really depends with opinions on yours, because you'll be the one playing it. So if you like it, fair enough, get it, play it, you can enjoy it. If you don't like it, fair enough, you don't have to get it, you don't have to worry about it because you won't have it. So that is everything with the leader, so nice and simple. And now what we're going to do is go into a bit of basic information, because I like to cater this series to all levels of play. So even if you're an absolute brand new beginner, I like to make sure there's information included that's very basic to help you understand how to play the game and just the basics you'll need to play it. And if you're more of a veteran, we've got more information. But if you feel like, as a veteran, you don't need this basic information, it's not going to be useful, then feel free to check down the description down below, where you'll find some timestamps to show different parts of the video, so you can skip to the part you're after, rather than have to just watch through, or skip through. So, with that out of the way, let's go and get some basic information for you brand new players, starting off with the bases. So, first bit is bases, and this is the ever bit of essential kit you need to play the game, because like with the leader, this is what you need to start the game, because one, it provides you with your third aspect alongside your leader, and two is the way how you learn how to win or lose the game, because the only way to win or lose the game is by doing damage equal to the health on the base. So you win by doing enough damage to your opponent's base equal to its health, and then you lose by your opponent doing the same back to you to your base. And in this game, there are two types of bases. There are the rare bases, which have varying degrees of health, and to compensate for that, the loss or gain of health compared to a normal base, they have an effect on there as well. And then for the common bases, they are essentially just all 30 health bases with different arts, names, and locations. So we're going to explain what the kind of benefits each of these bases are, so we can have a look at them a bit. So we're going to start off with the rare bases, and there are currently 12 rare bases. So we've had one per aspect per set, except from set 2, that's where we took a break, and they all vary in health. So we got the set 1 ones, because all of them have a theme as well, kind of for each set they have a theme, and the first set ones are the first ones we got, and they're all epic action ones, meaning that like a deploy, you can only use it once a game, and once you've used it, that's it, it's gone. So they all have 25 health to compensate for this, and now will have an epic action, and they vary depending on how they're used, and they kind of all match their kind of aspects playstyle. Now these ones we've had Energy Conversion Lab, which is the green one, or shortened to ECL, which was the best one for the first 2 sets, and then since it's gone on, it's then been replaced as Tarkin Town for the better base, just due to how the meta's evolved. And then we did get some in set 3, of course we skipped set 2, no rare bases in set 2, but in set 3 we got some new ones as well, and those ones in set 3 I haven't put on there because, well, 1 due to space, and 2 because they aren't really that great for the normal format, because they're more used for, well, they're more designed for Twin Suns. Because in Twin Suns you get 2 leaders and 1 base, where in the Premier play, normal play, you get 1 leader, 1 base, and their effects are all about when your leader's on board, they give them a stat boost, like more health or more power, or for when they deploy. And since you have 2 leaders in Twin Suns, you get double the use, whereas normally you get 1 use in the normal format, and they just don't have that great effect for just 1 use, or even for the health as well. And then that brings us to the new ones from set 4, and they have effects that are around either your deck building, when it comes to deck building around that, or regarding your opening hand. So the 2 we got regarding opening hand is the Colossus, so the blue one, and the yellow one, the Bat Village, and also just the first set to feature rare bases with more health than the standard 30. Because like you see, we got Colossus here, which is 35 health, and for that 5 extra health, you start off with 1 less card in your opening hand. So rather than starting off with 6, you start out with 5. So that means after resourcing your 2 cards, you only have 3 options in your hand. So that's supposed to be a detriment, but the 5 health can sometimes be worth it. But then is it worth the 5 health for 1 less card? But that's up to you to decide. And then for the Bat Village, this allows you to open with 9 cards in your hand, so additional 3 more cards in your hand, but you lose your mulligan. So rather than be able to see 12 cards over 2 hands, 6 for the first hand, 6 when you mulligan to a new hand, you only get that see 9, so 9 in one go, and lose a mulligan. Now that could be better depending, because you see less cards overall, but you see more cards in one go, meaning that you got a better chance to open how you want, and make sure you've got a turn 1 play and an optimal setup, especially if you're a combo-based deck, or a deck that needs a certain kind of opening to trigger, or to go off of what you want to do. And while you think 9 cards is excellent, that's amazing for like 3 less health, you don't get to keep those 3 cards, because at the start of the first action phase, you're then forced to put 3 cards from your hand on the bottom of your deck in any order, and that means you don't get to keep those extra 3 cards, but it just helps you increase the likelihood that you open with how you want to open, really. And the other 2 bases we have are Data Vault, the green one, and from Oscillator, the red one, and these are the ones that have an effect around deck building. So they each have an increment of either 3 more health or 3 less health, and it affects your minimum deck size. So a Data Vault, for 3 more health, you have to have 10 more cards minimum in your deck, meaning instead of 50, you'd have a minimum deck of 60. Now that is kind of good or bad depending on how you mix. Some decks have been playing more than 50 cards anyway in deck in some formats, so the extra 10 cards might not be that bad. Like, it lowers the consistency, but still, is it worth that free health? That's for you decided once again. Then we've got Thermal Slayer. Now, for 3 less cards, you get 5 less cards in your deck, meaning instead of needing 50, you need 45 now as a minimum, which means you've got less cards in your deck, meaning you hopefully more consistently find those cards. But then, is it worth that 3 less health? That's once again for you to decide. Now, if you feel like any of these rare bases are not really worth the increase or decrease to your health, and you just want a 30 health base, the main standard, then you can always just go for a common base or vanilla bases, which is a term referred to for things that have, like, vanilla is normally used for things that have no effects. So with each of these bases, they all have 30 health, and the only differences are their aspects, and within those aspects, it's the name, location, and art on the base. So essentially, since there's nothing at the moment in the game where it matters what location or name of your base is, you can just go ahead with vanilla bases and just pick whatever aspect you want for a base, and then pick your favorite art in that aspect and play that. And for these ones, these are my preferred ones. These are my favorite ones because the top row being the new Hyperspace foil versions of older bases that come in the new Twin Sun step boxes by Gamegenic. And also the bottom ones are the ones that are my favorite aspects, well, favorite arts in the aspects in the new set. So those are the bases. Now we're going to go on to narrow a bit of, well, crucial basic information you need, and that's about the aspects. So with the aspects in this game, you have 6 of them. You have the 4 color ones, which you'll find on all leaders and bases, and also on a majority of the cards in the game. These all have a certain style of play, and we'll go over what those kind of are in a sec, because you might be wondering, like, you've got your own play style, which one kind of suits it best, and we'll go over that in a sec. And alongside them, you've got 2 more aspects, being the villainy and heroism, or being black and white, so villainy is black, heroism is white. And these are the ones that are quite unique compared to the rest, where they can not only be on their own cards, so be cards that are just villainy or heroism, but also be attached on cards with the other 4 aspects. And they kind of have their own way of playing. Like, you've got villainy, which features the antagonists of the Star Wars universe, which feature many characters like Vader and Snoke and Palpatine, and they feature the very controlling destructive effects on their cards. And then you got Heroism, which features the protagonists of the Star Wars universe. You got like Rey, Luke, and Anakin, and they feature the more rebellious effects and effects that can help each other out. As such, the Heroism side in the Star Wars universe. So those are the aspects, and we'll quickly go over these other 4, so that way you understand what kind of focus they have for playing. So we'll start off with blue, which is Vigilance. This is the one that is more defensive and more controlling, because it's got a lot of effects that allow you to heal, protect your base through things like shielding or even by sentinels, which are like blockers, and then also have removal effects in either events or just in units. So if you like to play a very patient, slow, and controlling playstyle, Vigilance is a perfect one for you because it's got a lot of defensive tools. Next we have Command, and this is the ramp aspect. Any game that's got a resource management kind of system, then they usually have a ramp one. They increase your resources so you can play more things, and that is what Command is in this game. And luckily, if you like ramp, then good thing is Wedge has that built in because he has Command as one of his aspects. And this one allows you to ramp up your resources to play out more things early, either play out more little things early, or play out bigger things quicker than your opponent does. So if you like to overwhelm your opponent with a huge board or big things, then Command is perfect for you. And then we got Aggression, just like the name suggests, it's a very aggressive playstyle. It's more where the aggro decks are, and it's also very aggressive in terms of damage as well, because it makes use of like damaging units or bases by effects or just by pure aggression of attacking. So if you like to play like a very fiery playstyle and be aggressive, throw damage at your opponent at no like as much as possible and as aggressively as possible, then Aggression is a good one for you to go for. And that brings to the last one, being Cunning. Now this is the jack of all trades, like the answer for everything kind of one, the one that likes to have the last word, because it has a lot of effects that allow you to disrupt your opponent's game plan, and even basically have an answer to anything your opponent's going to try to throw at you. So if you like to have answers for anything and something for any situation, Cunning is a perfect one for you to go ahead and try. So those are the 6 aspects. Hopefully, one of them's been answered to be what you kind of like, so you can kind of know what to go with Wedge. And if you do like ramp, you've got another choice of either going double ramp or by going with the other ones with a base. And speaking of adding a base in the mix, when you do, you get 3 aspects. So you've always got the you've essentially got these 4 because you always got the heroism and cunning. Heroism and command with Wedge. And a base that makes you got a third one to make for these 4 different combos. So a blue base, you go green-blue. If you go for a green base, it gives you access to double green, which is more restrictive, but a good option. If you go for a red base, you've got green-red, and for a cunning base, you have green-yellow. So we're going to go in more depth about these kind of aspect combos and what they each provide, but first we're going to go over the aspect penalty, which is another key component of the game. Because when it comes to playing, when it comes to building your deck, you can put whatever card you want in your deck. As long as it's not suspended, you can put whatever you want in your deck. And currently, only the Boba Fett leader for set 1 is suspended, so you have to worry too much. So it means you can build your deck with anything in it. But when it comes to actually playing the cards when you get into a game, that is where the aspect penalty comes in. And if you don't know what it is, essentially, whenever you want to play a card, if the aspects on the card you want to play do not match what's on your leader and or base, you have to pay an extra 2 on top of every aspect that doesn't match. So here we got a nice handy dandy guide, because I understand that people kind of learn in different ways. Some people learn by listening, some people learn by seeing, some people learn by doing. So I like to make sure this is all covered so you can go ahead and play a game if you want to try it out yourself. And if you want to just see it, then we've got a nice handy dandy guide here. If you want to explain, I'm going to go over that now. So we've got Wedge with a red base as an example of a leader base combo. And this gives the aspects of heroism, command, and aggression, which is essentially white, green, and red. So, for the top box, we got here shown that if you want to play a card and all the aspects match, you pay no additional cost, you just pay the normal cost. Easy said, job done. Now, if you want to play a card shown in the second box, which is one that has one of the aspects on the card that doesn't match, then you have to pay an extra 2 additional resources on top of the card's cost, meaning that if the card cost 2 and had one aspect that didn't match, you now have to pay 4 for it, so that's double the cost. And do remember that aspects also only cover one of the aspects given. So the ones on our leader base combo here, they'll provide 1 each. You got 1 white, 1 green, or 1 red. But if you have a card that has 2 green aspects on it, then one of them is going to be covered by the green aspect on Wedge, but the other one is going to be covered because the one by Wedge is already used up for the first one. So it means you have to add additional 2 resources on top of the card due to not having that second green. And then if you want to play a card where both aspects on the card don't match, so shown in the last one, the bottom one, you have to pay an additional 4 on top, because remember it's 2 per aspect. So meaning a card that costs 2 now costs 6, because it has an additional 4 costs, meaning it's now triple the cost that it normally was, which is a hell of a lot expensive. Now do remember that while the aspect penalty is kind of like the turn, because it makes it so a card is more costly, sometimes it's worth playing the card out of aspect. Because sometimes you get cards that the effects are just worth playing out of aspect, so you can get the great effect. Like the good example and the best example you can have are the events, double aspect events from set 1, which are 4 cost events that give you 4 options, and you can choose any 2 and resolve them however you choose. And those are ones that double aspect. Sometimes you don't want to go double aspect just to play those. So sometimes you might play them out of aspect in a dual aspect deck, and then still pay an extra 2 to mean they're 6 costs, but they're worth it because of their effects. Do you remember, while the aspect penalty does make a card more expensive, sometimes it's worth the extra 2 resources or the extra resources on top. So hopefully that's helped you understand all about the aspects. Now we're going to cover one last bit of basic information before we go on to what the benefits of each aspect combo are, and that is via the ratios. So, in any card game, you can have a certain amount of copies of any given card in your deck. Now, it varies between games, but for Star Wars, that maximum amount of copies is 3. So you can have up to 3 full copies of your cards in your deck. You can only have just 2 copies of a card in your deck, or you can have a sole single copy or 1 copy in your deck. And now I'm going to go over and explain, because sometimes you might see on lists, for some people you run 3, 2, or 1 copies, so I can help you understand why that might be. So, for 3 copies of card, we have this as a ratio to help maximize the likelihood of the desired card will be in your hand when needed. And the great examples of this are cards you want to play on the first turn of the game, or cards you want to see multiple copies over the whole course of the game. So I used to try and get like a more specific focus, specific kind of examples for each leader, so where you got a better view of it. But sometimes it's quite difficult, or sometimes you keep using them again, where it's hard to kind of show a different card each time. So now I've got the just same 3 copies to kind of explain it, because it makes it a little bit easier throughout the whole ones, or well, the whole series. So my example for the 3 copies of a card is Resupply, because this is a card that helps do what command wants to do, which is ramp. And it's a very easy one and cheap one. You can play as early as turn 2. That is available to all aspects that are combined with green. So it's not just locked to either heroism or villainy, it's just in green. So as long as you're playing green, you can play this. And it's a very simple card. You just play it, put it into player's resource, and then you've ramped up. Easy said, job done. So this is a card that you might want to have a full 3 copies of, because that way you can hopefully see it as early as turn 2, so you can play it and then start ramping up, so you can either deploy your leader early or start playing more things or bigger things quicker. Then we've got 2 copies of card, and this is usually the ratio for cards that aren't great to draw early in the game, but you still want to go through multiple copies over the course of the game. So examples are being boss cards or high costing cards, and a great example we've got is Rivals Fall, because in this game you have removal effects, and they're usually more restrictive the cheaper they are, or less restrictive the more expensive they are. And also you get some events that, well, or some effects that want to defeat a unit, but they sometimes say non-leader unit. And that means that leaders are a little bit harder to hit outside of, with effects outside of damage. So Rivals 4 is a perfect one because it defeats absolutely any unit, no matter what. And the effect, while it's a 6 cost, it's a high costing card, so you don't want to have it early in the game when you can't use it and don't want to hold onto it so you have less options. But you want to see it later in the game, so when your opponent does deploy you there, you can go bam, take it out with Rivals 4. So you might want to have 2 copies of cards, that way you can only see it early and not see it too early, so that way you can have it when you need it. And then we've got the 1 copy of a card. This is usually a ratio for cards that are added to decks to counter a certain kind of situation. And the perfect example I've always got for this is Restock. And that is because it's added to decks to counter a hard control, because hard control, just like it says on the tin, want to focus solely on controlling the game. They're not about damaging you, they focus on making sure they're always in control of the game, and it plays however they want. But that means they're not going to be damaging your base, and like we said, they need to damage your base, to do enough damage to your base to win. So what they'll do is try and deck you out, so that way when you can't draw a card, that's when the deck out damage happens. So anytime you would try to draw a card, and you can't, if you can't draw 1 card, it's 3 damage. If you can't draw both cards, it's 6 damage. So they'll wait for you to deck out and have that damage as a way to take you out. So that way they have to worry about it. They just keep controlling, and the damage from the game mechanics wins the game. But if you play Restock, this can put up to 4 cards from your discard pile on the bottom of your deck in a random order. And given how the way it resolves, you can put itself as one of those 4 copies back in your deck, so you can keep looping it over and over again to prevent that deck out damage. And that means that in hard control decks, have to find a different way to defeat you and do enough damage to base to win, instead of just relying on decking out. So hopefully that's helped you understand the ratios when you want to have 3, 2, or 1 copies of a card. Now we're going to go into ratios, or the aspect combos, and see what the benefits are for each one. So what I like to always start off with is double aspect, because it's one that's a lot more limiting than the other ones, because you sacrifice a whole other aspect to have access to these 10 double aspects as a set 4. Now back in the first set of the game, we only had 3, so you sacrifice a whole other aspect for just 3 cards, and due to that, there's only 1 leader in each aspect that was worthwhile going for that and was worth it. Now with 10 cards in the game, well, 4 sets, and now 10 cards in the game for double aspect, every leader has a good chance to go into it, but then you've got to decide if it's worth it for you. And remember, since we've got Wedge being a focus on piloting, you've got to think about what benefits does he get for his skill. So the ones we have here is for set 1, we have General Krill, Attack Pattern, Delta, and Command. Now these ones, Command is the only really worth it one, because Command also is another one of those cards to help you ramp, and it has 4 effects you can choose any 2 of, so you can make use of any 2 effects on there, and they also mostly have a situation or effect for any situation. Whereas Krill doesn't really add anything to piloting, and is quite fragile for its cost, and even Attack Pattern Delta, this is one where you can, if you get a lot of units out, you can make him stronger, but then it's very, you need to set up, hope those, your minimum of 3 units survives, so you can power up, and it takes so many kind of actions to kind of boost them up and attack with them, that it sometimes isn't worth it. Now with the second lot, we had Enterprise and Lackeys, Enforced Loyalty, and Endless Legions from set 2, and these ones don't really match well with it, because you got Enterprise and Lackeys having good power to its, well, good stats to its cost, And you can smuggle it from your resources, so you've got a way to play it out from your resources, utilize that set 2 mechanic, but it doesn't do anything to go with piloting. And then you got Enforced Law. It will be a nice one where you can, for 2, you can pop one of your friendly units and draw 2 cards, but then you're losing unit just to draw 2 cards, and it doesn't add to anything you want to do. And unless you want to, like, drawing in this game isn't huge, like it might be with other cards, so it's not the most beneficial thing to defeat your own unit just to draw 2 cards. And then Endless Legions, this is a massively high costing card at 14, and is more of a card you want to devote your deck around. And with Wedge, since he wants to be more aggressive, focus on pilots, if you play out a card from Endless Legions, you can't play it by his piloting skill, you play it by his normal skill, so it's not really going to benefit Wedge too much, and it's so high costing, you're not really going to have time to get to it before you eventually defeat it, so not really worth anything from the set 2. And then for set 3, we got Maz Amadea, Manufacturing Soldiers, and Pyrrhic Assault. These aren't really worth it either, because, well, Maz Amadea is probably the better of the 3, because you can play it as early as turn 1, and then every time you play a unit afterwards, you can rest him to look at the top 4 cards, find a unit, reveal it, and add it to your hand, so you can make sure you've got a unit to play every turn. But it means that first turn of the game, you're not playing anything like a vehicle you can pilot something on, so you're not really making too much use of what is a decent card. It's not really worth it when it's not really going what Wedge wants to do. And then you got the other 2 events, which are not great because they didn't really do anything to focus on piloting, so it's not really worth running those either. Like Pyrrhic Assault is probably the better of the 2 because it turns all your units into bombs, but then there's only 2 damage when defeated, and you didn't really want your cards to be defeated. And that brings us to Unity of Purpose. Now this is a pretty nice one. It's a 6-cost event, so quite expensive, but it makes all friendly units. For each friendly unit you have with a different name on your board, you can give all of your units an extra 1/1 boost to them. So if you've got 5 unique units on board, then you can go ahead and give all your units an extra 5/5 to the stats, giving a huge boost that can always win the game. But the only issue is you've got to get out a lot of unique units, a lot of units that don't have the same name or are different, to be able to do that, and then boost them up. And since you'll be using pilots, you might not be having a wide board of lots of units, because some of them will be equipped onto other units, meaning that they're all stacked together. So it might not be the best. I don't think double aspect is a great way to go. But if you do, really, we've kind of determined that command is probably the best thing to go for. Maybe Maz Amadea. So maybe not the best one to go for Wedge, but I like to make sure everything's covered just in case anybody asks, like, what about double aspect? Now, before we go on and kind of see what you get from a different aspect combined with Wedge, first let's see what Wedge has to offer. Because remember, he provides you with the heroic and command aspects. So we're going to have a look, see what we've got in command. Now, remember, Wedge is a rebel card, and there are a lot of rebel cards for set 1, even more in set 2, and that means there's a lot of good stuff. So you've got Mon Mothma's a good card you can play as early as turn 1, which can help you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, find a rebel, add it to your hand, and then have it ready to use whenever. So that means you can look for a lot of them, and like you see, all these cards you see on screen are all rebels, and there are a lot of rebels in command. Because remember, we had both Leia and I can't remember the other one, Hera as well in the first set, where we got a lot of rebels, and you got a lot of good pilots as well. Because remember, he's all about focusing on pilots. So you got some good ones like Nien Nub, Luke Skywalker, and Chewbacca being some very good ones. Remember, with Wedge's skill, you reduce the piloting cost by 1. So I think Nien might be a 1 cost, so you can play it for free on the first turn, so you can play it on the whatever vehicle you play turn 1. And Luke and Chewbacca are 3 cost piloting, but you can turn those to 2 to make it a little bit cheaper, which is pretty nice there. And then you got Wedge Antilles being something all the way from set 1 that didn't see too much play or really any play at all. And he's quite nice because remember, since you're using pilot, what piloting does is allow you to play a card onto a friendly vehicle as an upgrade. And since you need a vehicle out, Wedge is a really nice one to kind of boost it. So you got the leader and you got the unit. And what the unit Wedge does is a 5 cost 5/5 that makes all friendly vehicles have 1/1 to their stats and ambush. So they can come attack straight away, and they're a bit more powerful with extra health and power. And some of those really, really great vehicles you have are ones you can play on turn 1, like Phoenix Squadron A-Wing being a 3/2, which is very good. Like strongest you can probably be for a 2 cost. Not the most bulky, but still pretty solid. Blue Leader, which already has ambush and even has a nice unique effect to allow it to potentially jump to the ground arena. And you got Bright Hope being a very powerful sentinel in the space arena that can even bounce back something from the ground to make use, which has a nice little thing with Luke, where if Luke's upgraded on a unit and that unit is defeated, you can then put him in the ground arena, which means you can then play Bright Hope that bounces back to your hand, draw a card, and then be able to put loot back on the Bright Hope, so he's powered that back up. So the very nice things there. And even then in the normal side of command, so the non-heroic side, you've got some pretty nice ones. Like you've got Ever Pilots like Clone Pilot and Jarek Jaeger as nice pilots. You've even got some other pretty useful space units like Scouting Headhunter and Close Combat Squadron. Because Close Combat Squadron is a pretty nice one. It's a 4-cost 3/3, but he gets an extra 1/1 to the stats for every ever friendly friendly space unit you have. So the more space units have, the more powerful it gets. And then you got some nice events. Like you got Salvage, able to play back a vehicle from your discard, but you have to deal damage to it. So you also have to pay the cost of it. So remember, it was a 0-cost event. You do still have to pay the cost of the car, which is why it's 0 cost. You have Air Superiority, because since you're focused on vehicles and piloting, you're most likely going to have a lot of space units. And if you have space units, your opponent goes ground. This one allows you, while you control more space units than your opponent, you can deal 4 damage to a ground unit your opponent controls. So you can kind of punish them for going ground instead of space. You even have eject as a way to kind of knock off pilots. So if you ever got a space unit a unit with a pilot on that's just about to die, and you don't want to lose that pilot, you can always knock off that unit, put in your ground arena and draw a card, or you can use it on your opponent's units to knock off any pilot off their space unit. So you can basically take it off, meaning that card's not so powerful, and now it's split into kind of 2. And then you also have Resupply as your ramp card. So that's what you have with Wedge. Now let's see what you have when you put a different aspect in the mix. So the next one we're going for is Vigilance, and this has also got a lot of rebels as well you can use, and also it's got a lot of good space units and also some good pilots. Like for some solid space units, you've got things like Restore Arcs, so you can play turn 1, that gives you a bit of Restore, so heal 1 damage from your base. You've got Phantom 2, which comes down as early as turn 2, that comes down with Grit, so the more damage it takes, the stronger it gets. You got Red Squadron X-Wing, which allows you to draw cards by taking 2 damage, which is nice. And then Concord Dawn Interceptors as a nice little sentinel. Also, whilst attacked into, it does more damage than if it's just swinging normally. And alongside of those, you can got some good pilots that you can put on these units, like Hera, be a nice one that you can put on a unit and then add Restore to that unit. You got Page, which is a nice little effect. When it attacks, you can give an experience to it, but it needs to take some damage. So it gets stronger, but it takes a little bit of damage. So you kind of mediating the making the card stronger, but its bulk stays the same. And you got Cassian as a nice one, where when it attacks, you discard a card from your opponent's deck, and if it's a card that costs 3 or less, you draw cards. So you got a way to kind of try and draw more cards. And then you got the Ghost being a nice big space unit you can get, which while it's upgraded, all other Spectre units you control gain keywords on it, and while it's upgraded, it's a Sentinel, meaning you can have a big, nice Sentinel in the ground arena, and it's something that can come down the same turn as Wedge deploys, because you can potentially play it down, equip it to it to give it that 3/4 boost, turn it into an 8/10, and now it's a Sentinel that gives all other Spectre Sentinel as well. And in the non-heroic side of Vigilance, you've got some other nice stuff. Like you've got more pilots to make use of Wedge's effect. So you've got like Astromech Pilot, which when comes down as an upgrade, heals 2 damage from a unit. So if the units you put on damage, you can heal it up. You've got Academy Graduate, which turns whatever vehicle goes on to a Sentinel. And you've got Trace, where on attack, she gets to heal 2 damage from any number of units. So you can heal some damage off the unit it's on to keep it nice and healthy. You also got some nice space units like System Patrol Craft being a nice Sentinel one, and even Spyro's Gauntlet, which can come down and kind of mess about with upgrades by moving them about across the opponent's board. So you can move upgrades on your opponent's board across their units, or ones across your units across your other ones. So you can potentially play this and move a pilot from a different unit to itself, so it's off something that might be dying, or make use of more pilots so they can attack, get its benefit, and then put onto a different one to attack them with that. You also got some nice upgrades like Paris Position, which is the first one that kind of minus the stats, and it's also what it's put on. And you got nice events like Evidence of Crime, once again be able to mess about with upgrades, but allow you to take control of an upgrade that costs 3 or less and put it however you like. And then even like removal events like Rivals Fall and stuff like that. So Vigilance could be a very good one for Wedge. It's got a lot of good kind of rebels to go with it for the rebel synergy if you go for that, and also a very few nice pilots and a nice bit of healing to keep some of your space units that are upgraded about for longer. Now for the next aspect we have aggression, and like it suggests is it makes for a more aggressive deck, so you can be very aggressive for the space arena. And I didn't find too many pilots for the heroic side of aggression, but we've got a lot of space units. You've got a lot of good ones. Like you got on the whole top row is your turn 1 plays that you can play. So you got Grease Watch and A-Wing, which is a pretty nice one. Black 1, which gets more power when it's upgraded, and if you control Poe in any shape or form, you then get the head and, well, deal damage to a unit. You got Red Squadron Y-Wing, which I put twice, I just realised, which on attack, you can deal 3 damage to a defending player. So I did kind of put the same one twice, I kind of missed that, but I try to put as many as possible, and it's all focused on the space units for aggression. Then you got some good ones for turn 2, being Red 3 and Red 5. Red 3 gets to power up all your heroic units by giving them an raid 1, so they're swinging for extra 1 power when they swing, and even has raid 1 itself. Makes for a more aggressive play, so you're doing a bit more damage than normal. And you got red 5, which one attacking can deal 2 damage to damaged units, so you can kind of finish off things by swinging, which is cool. You also got ways to make full use of them by playing them out cheaper, or even by attacking more. By They Hate That Ship being a nice event that allows you to play a vehicle from your hand that costs 2 less. You're paying it for, costs 3 less, so making it cost 2 less overall, but you give your opponent 2 TIE fighters, which is not that bad, because they're only 1/1 units. And you got Trench 1, allowing you to attack with a fighter, give it +4 for attack, but it does have the downside of having, on attack, discarding 2 cards from your opponent's deck, and then you take damage to that unit for the difference between them. But if your opponent playing against a quite aggressive deck, you're usually going to have cheap cards, so there's not going to be much difference between the units, and you can get quite lucky and still push back through a lot of damage for it. And in the non-heroic side, you got some nice stuff. Like you've got some pretty nice units. Like you've got an additional pilot in Determined Recruit, be a nice one to give a lot of power for cheap. You also got Saving Fang Fighter, being a way to knock off upgrades, because aggression does have a fair few like upgrade hate in it, so you can use that to counter like mirror matches or opposing kind of pilot strategies. You got Tarkin, which powers up all your vehicles by 1 extra power and gives them overwhelm, so piercing damage essentially. And you got Cham as a nice ramp card you got for aggression, where if you're behind on resources, you can use him to ramp up to kind of catch up. You also have some pretty nice space units that you've got, vehicles that you can pilot on. So you've got Orbiting K-Wing being a 4-cost 4/4 with Saboteur, so it ignores Sentinels and Shields. And War Juggernaut, which is when it comes down can deal damage to all unit. You can damage any number of units on the board. And the more units that are damaged on the board, the stronger he gets, because he gets an extra 1 power for every unit that's damaged on the board. So the more damaged things, the stronger he is. And then you got some nice events like you got System Shock, more upgrade hate by knocking off an upgrade off a unit and dealing with damage to that unit. And then stay on target, allowing you to attack with a vehicle, give it +2 for that attack. And if it does damage to a base, you get to draw a card, so you can draw more things while pushing more damage. So aggression could be a very nice way to play for Wedge if you want to play very aggressive with it, so it could be a good way to play. And then we have Cunning. Now this has a lot of nice stuff as well, because it has some pretty nice pilots to go with Wedge, and some nice vehicles to put them on as well. Like you got some nice nice, not upgrades, but pilots, like Dagger Squadron Pirate, Anakin Skywalker, and Han Solo, pretty nice one. Like Anakin being one of those ones you can put on a pilot, swing and bounce back to hand, so you can always be putting a pilot on. It does cost, I think, 2, so you can reduce it to 1, but still you're making sure you always got a pilot that's not going to die along with whatever it's attached on if it gets taken up in that turn before you can use it again. Then you got Han Solo, which it can be used great as either a space unit or a upgrade or a ground unit. And if you put it on a unit, you're getting it attack with that unit straight away. So it's kind of like a boost and straight up attack, almost like the Hotshot Blaster kind of thing, but for attaching on vehicles. And if you put on Millennium Falcon, you do that shoot first damage, which is pretty cool. And with space units for Cunning, you got some pretty nice ones. You got your Cartel Turncoat, a nice 1-cost one that you can put a pilot on that maybe costs a little bit more than just 1 for its piloting on it. Wolfpack Escort, which is the most fragile, but allows you to recycle some of your pilot vehicles, not your vehicles, but your non-vehicle cards. So if you've got a pilot in the ground arena, you can pass it back to your hands. You can pilot on it. And you got nice ones like Fireball, being a nice one you can play as areas turn 1 with Ambush. It does get damage during the regroup phase, but you can still ambush straight away. And then you got some nice Millennium Falcons as well, like the 3-cost Legendary for set 1, which can come in active. Then you have the downside of having the tap resource to keep it on board. Or you have a Millennium Falcon from set 2, which does have ambush if you play it from your hand, and also can be smuggled in as well. You also have some nice stuff in the non-heroic side of Cunning, like you've got some extra pilots like Independent Smuggler and Bo Shek, which are pretty nice ones. Nice little pilots offer some nice benefits. You've got some nice vehicles as well, not just vehicles that on the space but also on ground, like the Land Speeder, and you also got Republic Y-1 being a cheap one. And you got a nice one that I feel like could be very useful with things like Wedge in Outer Rim Headhunter, because remember that when Wedge attaches to a vehicle as an upgrade, you make that unit now a leader unit. And Outer Rim Headhunter is a nice effect where on attack, if you control a leader unit, you can exhaust a non-leader unit. So if you have Outer Rim Headhunter out and you deploy Wedge on top of it, it now turns Outer Rim Headhunter into a leader unit, which is now a 4/7. So now every time it attacks, it has raid 1, so it swings for 5 because it's got that raid 1 as well. And also we're always wrestling because it itself is now a leader unit. Then you have Razor Crest being a nice one that you can deploy as well on, and every time you deploy attach a pilot to it, you can get a benefit of either bouncing a non-leader unit that costs 2 or less back to the hand, or resting something that's 4 or less that's not a leader unit as well. And speaking of which, you've also got some nice events, and you've got things like Surprise Strike, which are like events that allow you to tackle a unit and give a nice boost to that unit's attack for that attack. And even nice ones like Astral Sanctuary, being able to rest an enemy unit and give something that's 3 or less a shield, so protecting some of these cheaper costing space unit or vehicles, so that way you can put a pilot on without them being defeated first. So Cunning could be a very nice way to play with a bit more in terms of like pilots to use, and some pretty nice ones to go alongside it. Also remember, like I said, Heroism is quite unique in that it's not only just put on, not just basically put with other aspects on cards, they're also on cards themselves, so they're basically partner with other aspects as well as on their own. So you've got cards that are just Heroism. And these are pretty nice ones. Like you got R2D2 being a very nice pilot. It doesn't need the boost. Well, it doesn't need the help with Wedge to pilot on something a little bit cheaper because his piloting is 0, but it allows you to put it on a unit that has already got a pilot on it, and even allow you to put more pilots on that unit as well, which is pretty cool. And then you got some nice space units like or vehicles that you can just play, like Resistance X-Wing, Sabine's Masterpiece, and Millennium Falcon as extra vehicles that you can put pilots on. Get a benefit because like Resistance X-Wing gets an extra 1/1 if it's got a pilot on. Sabine's Masterpiece gets benefits when it attacks, depending on whatever aspects you have on board among your units. And then Millennium Falcon is one that can be boosted up with more pilots than usual than the standard one. And then for every pilot it does get on it, it gets extra 1 power, and you can put this up to huge amounts with some of the other pilots and make it into a huge beat stick that's hard to remove. And then that brings us to the last bit of the video, and almost the end of it, which is showing off my preferred aspects, because this is something that I kind of got requested back from the first 2 sets when I was doing this series, and so I've incorporated it since set 3. And some people do ask what my preferred aspects are, and just to help out people a bit further, I like to make sure I add this now so you can kind of get a little bit more help just in case you're still unsure. And if I were to play Wedge, which I might do because he does seem quite fun, I'd probably play him either mainly in red because you've got a lot more good space units in there. I could make for a lot of ones you can play cheaper and put some strong pilots on. And if I didn't play that, I'd probably play Cunning because you have like a lot of good, just like with Aggression, you got some really good space units, and you also got some pretty cool pilots to go with it as well. So those are the ones you probably get the most benefit of. You can also go for blue. It's got fair and nice ones that you can. It makes it. Well, if you go for blue, it's a little bit less aggressive, a little more defensive, but it could be a nice way. I just prefer probably Aggression and Cunning as my ways to play Wedge. So that is the end of the video. So that has hopefully helped you understand how to build understand how to build Wedge Antilles to suit you and your playstyle, so you can build it how you like and have it suit how you like to play. So that concludes all the command leaders. So that's all the command ones done. So that's the end for this series for this week. But starting from next week, we'll go over the aggression leaders, which we have. I think it's we got Phasma and Von Reg as the dark side ones, and then Poe and Luke as the good side ones. So if you're looking forward to those aggression leaders, then stay tuned for next week. But for now, that is it from me. Thanks for watching. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.